Papa Jeff's America program is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Thank you. If you'd like to buy Papa Jeff a cup of coffee, visit us on the web at coffee.papajeffusa.com, because you know how much Papa Jeff loves his coffee. Papa Jeff's America, the talk radio podcast, continuing the conversation, one podcast at a time. It's talk radio time from Houston, Texas, broadcasting around the country and around the world. Welcome to the Papa Jeff's America program. We're the talk radio podcast that discusses the stuff and things that you want to talk about. The talk radio podcast continuing the conversation, one podcast at a time. Inspiring guests, insightful commentary, and what would a day be without Papa Jeff's classic old guy humor, right? So, here's the guy that has trouble seeing the big E on the eye chart. The guy that some would say has a unique sense of humor, and the guy that definitely has a face for radio. Here's Mr. Here We Go himself, PG the OG, Papa Jeff. Welcome to Papa Jeff's America. The Talk Radio Podcast, continuing the conversation, one podcast at a time. I'm Papa Jeff, and this is Papa Jeff's America. On today's broadcast, they encourage you to join them on their podcast for logical discussions about any and everything, but most importantly, for a place to be yourself. They're positive and they're awesome, always ending their podcast with this statement: stay safe, stay positive, and be true to yourself. Ellceey and Erron, the hosts of the Interracial Perspective Maturity Not Included podcast, are with us today. Now, I really enjoyed this conversation with them, and I know you're really going to enjoy it as well. Ellceey and Erron will be here in just a little bit. The Papa Jeff's America program, we are the talk radio podcast, continuing a conversation, one podcast at a time. Here's today's fun coffee facts from the brewsmartly.com website. Did you know that Thomas Jefferson once declared coffee the favorite drink of the civilized world? The civilized world? Well, that's a pretty pompous thing to say, dude, but that's another subject for yet another broadcast. Moving along, according to the National Coffee Association, there have been at least 5 attempts made to ban coffee. These occurred in Mecca, Constantinople, Italy, Sweden, and Prussia, where coffee was seen as too intoxicating to be allowed. It has also been blamed on several occasions for radical thinking, partially because of the coffee shop culture it encourages. Oh my goodness, they're drinking coffee, and the next thing you know, they, whoever they are trying to take over the world. Y'all, it's just coffee. Did you know that the United States is only number 11 in the world when it comes to per capita coffee consumption? Yep, according to the BBC, the top 10 consumers are all mainland European states, with the UK trailing the USA. In 2016, here's how the numbers ranked according to the International Coffee Organization. In the number 1 spot, it's Finland, followed by Sweden, Iceland, Norway, Denmark, Austria, Greece, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Germany, the United States, and the United Kingdom. Interesting. Can I just get a cup of coffee, please? And there you have it, today's fun coffee facts. It's 75 degrees with rain and 95% humidity at the Taco G Studios in H-Town, Space City, Houston, Texas. We're the city with no limits. We're Houston strong. Coming up, Ellceey and Erron, hosts of the Interracial Perspective Maturity Not Included podcast. Coming up next. The Papa Jeff's America program is on the air, anytime, any device, PapaJeffUSA.com. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the Papa Jeff's America program. I am Papa Jeff, your host. Today, their podcast asks us to join them for logical discussions about any and everything, but most importantly, a place to be yourself. They're positive. They're awesome. I've just had a very long off-air broadcast with these two, and they always end their broadcasts with, quote, stay safe, stay positive, and be true to yourself. Definite truths indeed. Ellceey and Erron, hosts of the Interracial, let's do that again. The Interracial, make it sound like it's irrational. No, the Interracial Perspective Maturity, not included, podcast are with us today. A very big Texas-sized welcome to you both. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on the program. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us. Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Yes. Hi.
I got to ask, who's the Scorpio and who's the Cancer?
Well, I'm the Cancer.
And I am the Scorpio.
And for everyone, I'm Ellceey. I'm Ellceey. I'm the Cancer.
Yes. And this is Erron.
They both have amazing voices and true radio voices. I mean, I've been told I have a voice that one of my guests came on not too long ago. He was in China, and that's
wow.
probably the long distance conversation that I've had. And he does voiceover work and things like that. And he said, Papa Jeff, your voice is so smooth, it could slide uphill.
It is. And thank you.
These guys definitely have the voices. And
Fun fact is, I actually hate my voice.
Do you?
I'm not a big fan of my voice.
Oh, you just asked my wife. Papa Jeff loves Papa Jeff's voice. He loves to hear himself talk. Nobody loves Papa Jeff's voice as much as Papa Jeff does. But you guys are amazing. I love your podcast, and we're going to have everything in our show notes so that our audience can join and listen to your podcast, because everything is just so calm, cool, collected. There's obviously behind the scenes work that's done with the subjects that you guys talk about. And I think I commend you. I love your work and definitely follow. And I can't wait for your next season to come out. But I have another, probably a generational question for y'all.
Okay.
Now, at least one of you, I'm not sure if both of you, but at least one of you is a video gamer, right?
Yes, that will be me, Ellceey.
Okay.
And thank you, Papa Jeff, for the kind words. And it's likewise. We follow you and we love your podcast. And thank you for having us on.
Thank you. So, of course, I'm old enough. I go back to the days of Pong, and was it Space Invaders or something like that? That's what video games were. They were very exciting, let me tell you, in the day. But what is it with people that, and it's a YouTube thing, what is it that people that watch videos where gamers are watching videos of other gamers game? What is that?
Well, that I can't really answer to, because I don't do that. I actually just play video games that I like. I'm not one that I honestly couldn't even tell you what the system or software that these new gamers use to watch other gamers or even to broadcast themselves playing video games. So I find it fascinating, and it's good for them that people want to watch them play video games. But I actually think that Erron can answer this question more, because he used to watch me play video games before I actually got him into playing video games with me.
I think there's a sense of, if you enjoy them, because I like games, but not like that. Like, I don't know what to do with my time other than read or work. So for me, it was like, okay, you can really just sit here and play this for this long. And then you just get caught up just watching, different moves that I know I can't do. Like, I know I can't do it.
Okay.
But I could see somebody else going, well, let me watch and see how they do it so that I can apply it when I play.
Now, see, that makes too much sense. Again, we're applying the common sense rule. We talked about that off air, and that just makes so much sense, because my oldest daughter, the recent high school graduate, she does that. I'll walk by and she's got this video of people watching video people playing games. Like, what is that?
And can I add one more little point to what Aaron just said? The one thing that I can say that maybe I don't know about watching people play like a full video game, like for instance, Resident Evil or something, watch the full walkthrough. For me, back when I was much younger, before like YouTube and stuff like that, you will have to go on like video game boards, or actually before that, it was like the magazine Game Pro. I'm not sure if that sounds familiar to anyone, but there used to be a magazine that came out called Game Pro that would get mailed to us, and it would give you tips and tricks on how to do certain moves or beat a certain video game. So when YouTube came out, it was easier for other people to just post certain instructions on how to beat a level as opposed to just going on the internet and reading it. Maybe the people who watch these video game players are more visual and they don't want to look up the instructions like I used to do, because sometimes the instructions aren't as clear when you're reading them as opposed to watching it and seeing how the moves are executed. Does that make sense?
Boy, it makes sense to me, and it just goes to show that there's an answer to every question. All you got to do is ask, because it sure did not make sense to me. And my daughter, I love her to death, but her reasoning was kind of, well, because I like it. Okay,
or that, or that,
or that, yeah. That's a good answer. It wasn't the answer I was looking for, but yeah, that's. So anyway, on to the thank you for that. On to the more meat and potatoes. Tell us about your podcast, the Interracial Perspective. I got it right that time. Maturity not included. Tell us about that.
So we started this podcast earlier this year, late January, early February. And it's something that I personally, Ellceey, have wanted to do. As we discussed prior to coming on, I had a YouTube channel that I posted like 3 videos on a while years ago, back in 2013 or 2011, I'm not sure. And it was more video games. And I was thinking, oh, I would like to do a podcast and talk about video games. But then I thought about it, like, who will just listen to me talking about all the video games that I like? And so finally, fast forward to 2021, I convinced Aaron to do a podcast with me, and we could just sit and talk about random things, which is what we do. But the title came up because we're an interracial couple, and we also have very interracial backgrounds. Like I myself, my mom is an Afro-Latino, specifically Dominican. My father is Senegalese and Togolese. And for those of you who aren't familiar, it's Senegal and Togo, which are countries in West Africa. And Aaron himself is an Italian Jew, but has a very diverse background. Like his siblings all have wives that were of different descent. Like one was Chinese and Taiwanese. One is Patty, who actually came on our podcast. She's actually from Brazil. And then there's me, Afro-Latino. So that's the premise of where the interracial perspective came from. And so what we talk about is just random things. And a lot of people might think that it's just us talking about race stuff. And it's not. It's just we're giving you an interracial perspective on topics that we think people would like to hear. So I'm not sure if Aaron, you would like to add anything to it.
No, I think that's a good point, because we just personally, I think we have a view of everybody has their own views, and not everything is just one-sided. So interracial just means everybody has a view, and together we just want to share ours.
Yeah. And it's just a premise also for people to just have fun, be themselves, and just make fun of life and not take things too seriously. I mean, we do talk about some serious stuff, like our season 1 finale was about racial discrimination and profiling, and our season 2 finale was about abuse versus discipline. So we do talk about kind of heavy topics and we give our perspectives on it, but for the most part, it's more lighthearted conversations such as Sailor Moon. One interesting thing about me is a lot of people don't realize that I love Sailor Moon. I'm a big anime Japanese fan. I love that stuff. I love true crime, and we talk about that. So it's not one specific thing that Aaron and I talk about. We tackle a wide range of topics. Besides politics, let me make that clear. We don't discuss anything political.
Been
And as
there,
I
done
tell,
that.
and as I tell everyone, our views on politics is Netflix's House of Cards with the combination of HBO's Veep. That's our view. We don't want to get involved. We don't want to engage. We don't want to touch it. And so it's just a place for people to come and just chat about random things like, do you have common sense? Like, what's your worst career or educational experience? And I just think that it's a place that everybody can come and just have fun and just, again, get rid of the background noise if they would like to.
I'll just interject one thing. They can come talk and not feel judged, or they're being judged for whatever statements, because that's one thing we don't do or don't care. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, own thoughts, own views, and everybody should have a place that they can talk about them.
I think that's absolutely right. And that's one of the things that I've noticed about your podcast is that you do touch on some subjects that are very, well, shall we say heavy, but it's always positive. You guys are always positive, and I think that's so important. Certainly now with how the world is, it's real easy to get down and for other people to perhaps drag you down, and that's not where you guys are at. Everything is positive, and that's hard. And I know from my personal, travels, it's hard if one doesn't do a podcast or is not familiar with what goes on behind it. There's a lot of research and there's a lot of things that go behind putting one of these things together, not only from the subject matter but from the guests that you have come on. It's not just a matter of you sit down and type out a thing and everybody puts the technology together. Somebody has to sit there and do that, and that's you guys. But you I don't know, I just can't say enough. I love you guys as the broadcast, and it's
Thank
again
you.
I'm yeah, it's
We try to be positive. We got so much positive feedback from the Coming Out Stories episode in season 1, because a lot of the main comments were, we love the fact that you guys had such a positive story to share. And again, not taking away from those who have encountered struggles or been through trauma, because they came out as a member of the LGBTQ plus community. Whereas Aaron and I, we didn't have that same experience. So it was nice to hear that a lot of people like hearing that. Oh, it was nice to hear that you had a positive coming out story, as opposed to all the horrible stories that you hear where people are disowned by their by their families. And so we're just trying to be about positivity. But another thing that I can say is that if it wasn't for Aaron, this podcast wouldn't exist, because as I explained, I had the YouTube channel that I posted 3 videos on back in 2013, 11, between those years. And fast forward to 2021, due to the pandemic, we had a lot more time on our hands because we used to travel a lot. And so I finally convinced Aaron, like, hey, let's do this podcast, because it's much easier to do, as opposed to back then. I feel like you would have to have required all that like studio equipment and other stuff to get it done. And so he finally agreed, and we just did it. And hopefully everyone is enjoying it.
But I also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Ellceey, you put a lot of the work into everything that goes out for the podcast, and I appreciate that. But I also think, especially in this day and age, during the time that things are going on, there's not enough just positive talk. I don't think every conversation can be positive in life. Maybe I'm wrong. We tend to try to have a positive viewpoint on it when we talk together, but I think people need to be able to see that you can have conversations about things and still, either agree or not, but you can have them without having negative undertones to it. And that's kind of something that we want to show as well.
I think that's absolutely right. That I mean, I think there's a way that you can do your best to turn a negative into a positive, turn the frown upside down kind of thing. I know that sounds, probably very Quaker, if you will, but you can be positive. You have to want to be positive. Sometimes positivity, you have to find it. It's not going to find you. That's just kind of the world that surrounds us. But
Yeah, I think walking around being a pessimistic or just being negative all the time, that will eventually wear on your mental health,
Mhm.
not only your mental health, but your physical health. And you also have to surround yourself with positive people. You can't keep people in your life that are just going against you. And as we discussed previously, that are just there to make you miserable, and they get joy out of you being miserable and don't want you to be happy. So a lot of people need to take notice to that too. And especially during these times, it's really important to evaluate who you have in your life.
Very true. There are those that are out there that are not happy unless you're unhappy. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the unhappy guy. I want to be the happy guy, and I want to try and make other people happy. And I could do more, but I definitely want to be the happy person, and I want to make other people happy. Ergo, the what I call the old guy humor. And my 16-year-old Monica's daughter, she says, I enjoy your old guy stories, because she hears about stuff that she doesn't know about, and they're back in the day, and I love to share those stories. And then there's old guy paramedic stories where, she gets to hear some of the stuff that it's like, you went and did that? Yep, I went and did that. Ew. Yeah, well, that was part of that job. That's for sure.
I know it's so funny. Like you feel dated when you bring up something like my nephew, he just turned 19, and we were talking about like the old computers, like how like technology has advanced. And it's like back when I was little, actually, I think I might have been a teenager when we had the big floppy disk you used to
Yes.
need to start the computers.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm like, you guys, you have it good. This stuff now that you have available at your fingertips was not around when I was a kid.
A super speed computer that you carry around in your pocket, and you can even use it as a phone. Imagine
Yes.
that.
Do you remember like the original cell phones, like the big fat back cell phones?
They were as big as a shoebox.
Yeah.
It was,
I was going to ask, did you ever think that you would see a day where, everybody had a computer? Because you could call it what it is, but your phone is really a computer. I mean,
Yes.
it is. It is. No, I personally, I never thought that. It's like, okay, of course, I go back to the days when phones had dials, and
Or the rotary phone.
the rotary phone, yeah, and busy signals, and there were 4 TV stations, the 3 networks and PBS, and they went off at midnight, and then it was, and that's when you had until like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning when they came back on with the morning news. And, I told my daughter the other night, I said, what, in my day, what a cordless phone was? And she says, what? I said, you unplugged it from the wall. And, so we love the old guy humor around here. And some days, especially in COVID times, it's what helps, what helps get us through. How do you guys plan out your subject matter and how to get your guests to come on and stuff like that? Is that just like, dinner time conversation, or how do you guys do that?
Well, for the subject matter, we normally are watching like TV, and Aaron and I normally have discussions about certain things that go on during a TV show. And we'd be like, just talking about it. And I'm like, hey, we should talk about this on the podcast. Like, for instance, the worst career and educational experience. We were watching I can't remember what Netflix show it was. I think it might have been Never Have I, when one was trying to do a science project, I believe it was. And it made me think about like when I failed this PHR exam that I had went to take, and I just couldn't believe it because I had never failed any. Again, I'm not that person that likes to say things about myself, but I was that student that had a 4.0 and graduated at the top of my class. So this was like a smack down to reality for me. And the entire time on my way home, I just was thinking, oh my God, I failed. I didn't pass this test. And it took every ounce of strength I had to not cry in the public on the train, because that's not me. And it just made me think about that episode, and was like, we should talk about that. And so that's how we normally get the topics of our podcast. We just see something, or we'll just have a conversation and be like, we should talk about this on the podcast. And as far as the guests, we've actually had a lot of people reach out to us wanting to come on our show. Some of the people we've reached out to that have came on, we know personally, like Patty, of course, my sister-in-law. But yeah, it's not a big like sit down or thought process. We just see something and you're like, oh, let's talk about this. I think that will make an interesting episode. And the people we have reached out to that we don't know to come onto our podcast, we always just say, hey, if you're interested, you can come on our show to talk about this. Like, we have a specific subject in mind that we would like to talk about with them. And the answer will be, hey, if you would like to, great. If you don't, we completely understand. Like, we aren't those people. We firmly believe in it never hurts to ask. So you can either say yes or no. We don't take any of that personally. So we have family members that we have wanted to come on our podcast and they said no, because again, they're extremely private.
Right.
And it was like, we don't even want to even hear our voices on anything. So, and it's like, I respect that. And I think that's our motto, and it goes back to being logical. I think some people might get mad if someone turns them down, and that's just not us. It's like, hey, you either say yes or you say no. You won't, well, you will not find out until you actually go ahead and reach out to a specific person you want to be on your podcast or show.
The answer is always no until you ask.
Yes.
It's always going to be no unless you ask. Absolutely.
And I think you have to not take it personally. Like, some people just aren't comfortable, or some people just are a-holes or whatever. They don't. So it's all about how you take it personally. Whereas me and Aaron and I, we don't care. If you want to, that will be great. But if you don't, we aren't going to take it personally.
Well, and you have to always remember, people are busy. People have things going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they say no, but you know, no is no and yes is yes. And hey, everybody should have a good time doing what they want to do and be able to say yes or no.
One of the folks that I was able to have a conversation with was actually someone that did talk radio in Los Angeles when I was growing up, and was a definite favorite. And I was able to locate him on social media, and it turns out he has since retired, obviously, from the radio, but he had the number one talk radio show in Los Angeles in the late 70s, early 80s. And it was I thoroughly enjoyed listening to him and his broadcast partner. And turns out now that him and his son do a podcast, and the gentleman's name is Ken Minyard. He was on the radio in Los Angeles, KABC 790 AM. And his podcast is called Minyard and Minyard Do a Podcast. Okay. I've listened to their podcast. I thought it was really cool. I sent them an email, and they actually mentioned it in their podcast that, you know, somebody named Papa Geoff wants us to come on the air, you know, his show. And what do you think about that? Well, turns out, long story short, I went to high school with his son.
Wow.
I didn't know that. I mean, I was the stage crew guy and he was the football guy. So I didn't know that, but it was a great conversation. And people will ask me, you know, well, how long is and you know, I call them conversations. I don't call them interviews, because I don't really think they're an interview. And, you know, well, how long is the show? And well, it's recorded, and you know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Sometimes they just take on a life of their own. Well, that conversation that I had with those two guys, Minyard and Minyard, really turned out to be, it was one of those hour plus things where it really turned out to be them interviewing me more than I was having a conversation with them. It was one of those that took on a life of its own. So you just never know where these are going to go. And if they don't want to come on, that's fine. That's fine. I've been fortunate where most folks, it's yeah, I'll do it. And so we just give it a go. and see what happens. I gotta ask you guys though. I am so jealous. I love your social media graphics, the things that you guys do with. How do you do that? The stuff that you've got on your YouTube channel and your. Oh, I just love the graphics. How do you do that?
Oh, thank you. Well, I actually I love that stuff. I am not in that field, FYI. I'm not into like the what is it, computer graphics or any of that. This is all stuff that I self-taught myself because I just like it. And I have always used a Bitmoji. Aaron can support that statement because I have been using that well before it was like going around in the public. Like, because a lot of people don't realize Bitmoji has been around for a while.
Yeah.
And so I actually use that a lot to do texting and stuff because I try not to I don't like to talk on my phone, or I'm not big on phone and stuff like that. And as everyone who comes to our social media, you see we get on there to post for our podcast like early in the morning and then late in the evening because we really aren't on there. And so it's a easier way to like communicate with people. And so I just take those graphics and just put them into like different like photo editors. And then I also use the iMovie software to create our videos. And that's basically it.
I would say that he has that vision for it. He's very good about figuring out, what kind of jives together. I've known that since I met him. He would do that type of stuff on the weekend in general. So it's always kudos to Ellceey for holding that down, because I don't have you call it marketing creative bone in my brain or thought. I'll chime in if asked, but he has a very creative side that can put things together, and I love how they're put together and aired. They just look nice, and it's just something I think almost comes naturally to him as well.
They're absolutely amazing, and to our audience, when you check out their social media and you look at their YouTube channel, you're going to think the same. I guarantee you're going to think the same. It's just amazing. I will admit that my emoji on my social media is the Facebook emoji, and that is really what I look like. I'm a little heavier than the emoji is, of course, but the beard and the Mr. Magoo glasses, if you will, and the baseball cap, that's, if you were to click on the video right now, that's who's sitting here on the other side of the mic. I definitely have a face for radio, and that's part of why I do what I do. But those are amazing, and kudos, Ellceey, definitely.
Thank you. Yeah, I've always liked this stuff. Even when I was younger, I used to like mix different tunes, but it was never something that I wanted to do professionally, as we just talked about prior to recording. Like I initially wanted to be a neurologist, but that was too much schooling. So I went a similar path, but didn't go that route. But yeah, I just love that stuff. I like doing it. It's fun to me. I'll throw on some music, and it's more of like just video game music, like instrumental music. Like I don't listen to the radio, and I'll just get in the zone and just start doing that stuff. But also, FYI for those, and some people can again confirm this, we also look a lot like our Bitmojis. Like I get told all the time, one day people may see my face, but again, I'm very private. But yeah, I look like the head wrap, the glasses, the beard, everything. Like once people see me, they're like, "Oh, you look just like your Bitmoji." I'm like, "Yeah, I do." I try to make it look exactly like me because I'm not showing my face.
You mentioned in one of your episodes about, and I think you were talking to a guest, but you talked about a little bit about doppelgangers. What do you guys think
Yes.
about that?
I believe in all of that stuff, and I actually, for the listeners, we do an episode about that, as Papa Geoff just mentioned. And for me, I ran into my doppelganger. I didn't meet them, like go up to them and shake their hand and have a conversation with them. No, it was a colleague of mine. We were leaving work one day, and she did a double take and was like, "Ellceey, oh my God," we were heading to the train. And As soon as we were going down the stairs, she turned around and said, "Oh my God, Ellceey, look, that guy looks just like you." And so I'm like, oh, whatever. I don't think nobody looks like me. So I turned around and yeah, she was right. That guy looked exactly like me. The only difference is he had long, long dreads. That was the only difference. Same complexion, same body type. Like I'm 5'9", 120. We're thin, tall. I wouldn't say I'm tall, but my family were very thin and kind of tall built. He was I swear he could have been a twin. And I don't think that a lot of people look like me, but when I saw that guy, we actually ended up following him. We started following him into the Walgreens and was kind of like dodging in the aisles. And the colleague and I, we were looking and she was just like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "I know." And as soon as I got home, I told Aaron, I'm like, "You will not believe this. This guy looked exactly like me." And again, we aren't those people. We weren't those people to be quickly to take out our phones and take photos because I'm not that person. Mm-hmm. And so it was just like, I'm telling Aaron about the story, and the colleague, she was able to tell him like, yes, I saw him and he looked exactly like Ellceey, and I couldn't believe it. So, and Aaron and I talk about that, and he said maybe he was from a different timeline coming, doing business in this era or something. So yes, I believe in that. I believe in aliens. I believe in ghosts. I'm not closed-minded to the possibility that this stuff exists, because I just think, me personally, this is me talking Ellceey, I think that it's naive to think that we are the only beings in this endless universe and galaxy. That's just my thought. You cannot sit here and think that humans are the only species. There's planets and solar systems that have not even been discovered, and yet we think it's just us. That's just me. I'm into all that stuff. I believe it. So that's just my thought. I'm not sure how you feel, Aaron, about, well, I know how you feel, but
Aaron, what do you think?
I do believe in all that stuff. I think it opens the door on how you believe what a doppelganger is to me, because to me, it goes down the path of what you believe in outside of, the possibility of a doppelganger. You could believe in aliens and maybe they shape form. You could believe in alternate timelines and maybe that's, a different timeline crossing path with your current one. But I believe there's 100 different reasons why that they exist, and I just don't know why, but I do believe in that. And I think there's a lot of open doors that can be done for discussions on that type of item, because, there's so much out there that you just don't know why.
And I definitely believe in ghosts, because my mom is one of 11, and they all had the same stories growing up. My grandmother, my abuelita, used to tell stories all the time about ghosts and like spirits and how she would see things. And I again, I'm open-minded. I'm not that person that would just be like, "Oh, whatever, you're dismissed." I want to hear, what did you see? What did it look like? And so my mom would tell us stories, and she actually was visiting us last week, and she told a new story about how something had followed my grandfather home. And my mom was telling us about how my grandmother would see this figure just mimic everything he would do. And I'm just like, oh, I never heard that story. See, and to me, you can't discredit a story if 11 people are confirming the story. Like, for instance, with the one example would be the smoke detector. When they were younger, my mom said that my grandmother used to take the batteries out the smoke detector at night because it used to come on its own. And then after she took the batteries out, it still would come on and it would play like little tunes. Oh, and it wasn't just my mom and my grandmother. It was like her and her siblings. They, as adults, would tell us these stories. And there's so many. I'm not going to take up the time about that. But yeah, I believe in all that stuff.
I think you're absolutely right there. I think that we would be, remiss, to use a positive word, to think that we are it. Absolutely. And I know they don't call them UFOs anymore. There's another, 3 initial abbreviation for unidentified flying objects, if you will. But if we think we're the smartest thing in the universe, we're way wrong, because if you can get here from there, wherever there may be, we're not the smartest ones. We are definitely not. And
Exactly.
we're the aliens,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And you come here and you look at us, and I don't think we're showing ourselves very well overall, because if you see us the way that we all act, especially a large group of us, not to go political, but why do you want to be here?
It goes back to what Aaron, what did you say? The aliens, they sit back and be like, oh, Earth, we don't need to visit that.
No. And I have to say, I think you just said it best. And I've never even thought of it that way. Papa Jeff was, they've made it here apparently, which means they have to be smarter than us, because we are just now making it to Mars, maybe,
right.
The moon. So I've never thought about that, but that was a very interesting point you had with that.
There's probably some really good travel deals from other areas of the universe to here, because nobody wants to come here.
Are we're that petting zoo where people go, oh, we'll go watch them?
Yeah. There's probably some, I don't know if they're on Expedia or, these other sites, but there's probably an international Expedia or something that offers, travel deals to Earth, third planet from the sun, right?
Right.
Let me tell you my doppelganger story. It was a couple of weeks ago, and everybody's always kind of kidded around with me that, because I'm an only child, I was adopted, and allegedly people have seen my brother, and I could kid back and say, yeah, I have an evil twin brother. Okay. And yeah, I don't know. I may not, but a good friend of mine who used to be a paramedic partner of mine, now travels the country. He works in air ambulance, and he texted me the other night just out of the blue, and I looked at it, and it said, Papa Jeff, are you in New Orleans? And I showed it to Monica, and no. And I said, no, I'm not. Why do you ask? I'm in Houston. And he says, I almost yelled out, Papa Jeff, what are you doing here? And he sent me a picture of this guy. I'm glad he didn't do it, but I'm glad he sent me a picture of this guy. And here's this guy, and he's sitting there, and he's got the beard, and he's got the Panama Jack hat on, and he's got a nice glass of wine, and he's got, well, I'm assuming is a fine cigar, and it could have been me. And
Wow.
I was just, and
that is so fascinating.
So I believe in it. Absolutely.
Have you ever seen, there's a YouTube video where this woman does videos of complete strangers who look exactly alike?
I haven't seen that.
Yes, I'll have to send it to you. It's a YouTube video where but it's old. I think it's like 10 years or some. She was sending out I think notices or emails to people like, your picture, do you think that somebody looks like you? And so they found a lot of people that look exactly like each other, like they could be twins.
Mm-hmm.
That's just that's fascinating. I mean, of course, somehow DNA might play a role if we're looking at it from a scientific standpoint, like, oh, this might be your relative down the line somewhere that you might not know. Or if you want to go the paranormal route, this could be a doppelganger or a shapeshifter or someone from a different timeline.
I think all of that stuff is out there. And in fact, the one of the podcast guests that I had early on, the gentleman I told you about that is in China, he does it's called Xander and Stone, Xander with an X, and it's the Science and Supernatural podcast. And Xander is in China. Stone, who is Jenna Stone, is in Arizona. So they do a long distance podcast. One, they investigate. I think that Xander is the one that does it from the paranormal standpoint. and Stone does it from the science standpoint. And it's really pretty interesting. All that stuff is out there. Absolutely, it's out there.
Yeah.
I believe in it. Previous lives, my cat, which I am now. I wasn't a cat person. We went to the SPCA here in Houston, which has a marvelous facility. It's amazing. And we were going to get my daughter a cat. She wanted to get a cat. And so I was looking at various animals, and there was a cat that was in one of the big glass cases. And I believe this cat spoke to me. And she said, "Pardon me, sir. I can see you are a man of means," which is not true. And may I have a moment of your time? And you will see today that my adoption is sponsored. There would not be any out-of-pocket expense. Perhaps you would like to have a meeting. And I told my wife, I said, I'd like to see this cat. And I went and told the lady there, and I said, I'd like to meet. Her name is Harley. And I said, I'd like to meet with Harley. And Monica said, that's a cat. Yeah, it's a cat. And so we went in the little room, and Harley came over, and she kind of rolled over and, "Hi, I'm cute." And, "Yep, you'll do. Let's go." And she, and she is just amazing. And previous life wise, though, we think she was we think she was in the military. And we think that she was perhaps like a World War II general or something like that in a previous life, because she must have her dinner at 1700 hours, 5 p.m. Central Daylight Time. If that meal is not on time, she is stomping around the bedroom here. Sir, I must have my meal, sir. So now the cat runs me, but no, I think those things, all that stuff exists. I think we have to have an open mind. And like we said,
interesting that you say, you think that she was a past general. I believe in that stuff too, kind of. And as we discussed prior to getting on, a colleague of mine she was very into astrology and all the birth charts and stuff like that. She did a full report for me, and apparently I am on my last life, and because I think it was like 7 cycles that you have to go through in order for you to learn what you need to learn. I'll have to look at it again, because I know we were going to talk about it in a future episode of our podcast. But apparently, like in one of my previous lives, I was like a queen or something. And then I also was the mother of like 5 kids. And I'm like, oh my goodness, 5 kids.
Wow.
So could be why you don't want kids now, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it also like plays into the role, like how certain things from your past life you bring into your current life, or whatever different life cycle that you're in. For example, I'm very nurturing. I'm caring to other people that I like family, close friends and stuff like that. So that's interesting that you brought that up. See, I pick up on the weirdest things. Like I tell you, I'm a nerd and I'm different. Like when you say, "Oh, her past life was a military general."
There's got to be something there, because she'll come right up and just look at me, "Sir,
sir."
But it's funny too that a cat would speak to you if you weren't necessarily a cat person prior.
I know, right? I've had dogs all my life. My first wife was allergic to cats, so I mean like the case if the cat was climbed up on your lap and kind of scratched your leg or something, she'd go into the full blown anaphylactic shock thing. So that was a bad thing.
That's Erron. He actually can't really be around cats at all.
Right. And that's how she was. And so, and Monica and her kids, always had cats. And I had, well, when I met Monica, we had a Saint Bernard, and I've had several different generations of Saint Bernards, and I think they're awesome. And nobody in Texas really knew what a Saint Bernard dog was. There are not many of them here because it's so hot and it's so humid. But we had several people, kind of come by and, "Hey, is that a Beethoven dog?" "Yep, that's a Beethoven dog." Yep. and we lost Abby, several months ago,
Aw.
and the cat misses her, because I personally think the cat is upset because Abby was who did all of her correspondence. She sent all of the cat's emails and all of the cat's texting messages, and we we have another dog at the house who came from the SPCA. His name is Derek Charles, and Derek is kind of a hound dog little guy, and he's all excited because he got a family. They told him at the SPCA he would have a family, and he did. And we took Derek Charles home on a separate trip to the SPCA, and he wants to be Harley's executive assistant, and I want to work with Big Kitty. I let me in. I want to. And he came in one day, and she ran under the bed. So we kind of figured that he didn't get the job. That she said no, and so she still doesn't have anybody to. He wants to re-interview. She told him he'd be eligible to reapply in 6 months, but. She doesn't have anybody to handle her correspondence right now. So it falls on me. I get to do it. But on you guys' positiveness, and I've told you I'm 61 years old. I don't consider myself like I'm on the back nine of the golf course, but I hope I have a lot more years left. But I've always been asking the question for a long time, why can't we just be ourselves? And that's what you guys are, and that's refreshing.
Thank
And
you.
why can't we just be who we are? It's not, in my humble opinion, it's not a skin color, it's not a gender, it's not we're this race, we're that race, we're part of the human race. It just doesn't make sense to me that why, and it goes far beyond me, certainly. And why can't we just take care of each other? Which means I'd go real far in Washington, D.C. with a career there. Not.
Exactly. I agree with you. I think a lot of it too, and this is just my opinion and my perspective, is I think a lot of people in this current era is they want to fit in. And instead of being themselves, they want to fit in with the majority of who's popular instead of, hey, if yourself isn't the popular opinion, who cares? As long as you're being yourself is what matters. Because if you don't be yourself, then no one will really know what you're about. People will know who you are if you're trying to be somebody other than yourself. And as everyone know, Ellceey and Erron have always been themselves.
Yeah.
Like, and again, growing up, this is why I say I never had a lot of friends. I had close friends, because this whole, oh, everyone's my friend. No, not everybody's your friend, because the minute you show certain people who you are, they have a problem with that. So you don't need to surround yourself with those type of people. If you can't be yourself around people who you claim or who consider to be your friend or will love you no matter what, then those really aren't your friends or the type of people that you want in your life. Because at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. And if you're not being yourself, that's not what's best for you.
That's right. That is absolutely right. I could not have, nor would I have tried to say it better than that. That is absolutely true. What's on the horizon for Ellceey and Erron? What's coming up in the future?
Well, we just wrapped up season 2 of the Interracial Perspective Maturity Not Included podcast, and we will be returning in July with season 3, with special guests popping in to share their perspective, and we will see how that goes. We record our podcast episodes well in advance, because we have careers outside of this, and as we discussed, we do this for a hobby. We just like to have fun and laugh and just spread joy and positive vibes to everybody. And so that's pretty much it that we have going on. And yeah, we're looking to see if we're going to record season 4. We haven't, again, it's based off how the season does and how many episodes we will record. But we're pretty much set to the 10 episodes per season of our podcast, because we do that. And we also put videos on YouTube for the listeners who have requested those. So that's pretty much it. Unless, Erron, you have something to add that I might have left out.
No, I think you hit that right on the head.
Well, we're definitely going to be watching for season 3 and season 4 and season 5, and I know you guys do, it's episodic work, and you do record those well in advance because you have a life, unlike Papa Jeff on the radio here. And
That and and another thing about me is that, or about both of us, is that we're both type A personalities. So and then I also have OCD. So in this OCD, in the aspect of having to be organized and have everything set and done, not like the kind where you pick out your hair or
right.
So
No, I walk around the house here turning off lights where people haven't been in the room for 5 minutes, or what do you mean this aluminum can is here with only half the liquid in it? No, why are we doing this? What? Nope, that's got to leave. No, that's me. I'm always going around doing that. And when you pay the power bill, you can leave the lights on as long as you want to. And
yeah, it's so funny too, because a quick story, at the office, a colleague who knows that I have OCD and like have everything has to be organized, she would come in and just move my staplers just to get a rise. She just laugh, and I'm like, why would you do this? This isn't funny.
It's
not funny.
It's really not. Stories like that. We in paramedic school, there was one of the education directors at the school. He had that, and I mean, every pencil, every pen, everything, every book, every whatever was perfectly in place. And his colleagues, the teachers at the graduation time, they went in and just messed everything up and turned all his books upside down and put them in, they were the spine of the book was on the inside and the pages were on the,
yeah, that's not funny. I don't think, and a lot of people think that's funny. That's not funny. Like it's not funny at all.
That's like bringing me up, or someone that doesn't like spiders, bringing them a big fuzzy spider. No.
Yeah, I don't find humor in that type of stuff. It's kind of like when my nephews would come over and they would play my video games. They would want to play the video games, and I would like, yeah, you play it. You take that video game out of the spot and you put it back where you found it, because I have everything alphabetized. And yeah, it will drive me nuts when they would do it. And I'm like, you literally just took this video game out of this spot. How hard was it for you to put it back in the spot? Don't put it in front or behind. Put it in this spot exactly. And I know that might drive some people nuts, but this is me. If you're going to touch my stuff, put it back the way you found it.
That's who I am too. The desk where my recording stuff is, it's always in the same place. It always looks the same way. Obviously, with the vision thing that I have, it's that way for a reason. But the table beside my bed everything is in the right place, so that I don't have it's just don't mess with my stuff.
Yeah, and also let me clarify, it's OCD specifically with me and my things. Like other people, no, I don't care. If you have a filthy house, I would just never come over your house. You like, that's not me. I'm not that person that be like, oh, I see your house, I have to clean it. No, I have OCD when it comes to my stuff. My house has to be clean. My desk has to be organized. Everything has to be organized. Everything has to be done specifically like this. So that's just me.
Monica's mom, and we love her to death. I think she has OCP personality. And she came and stayed with us for a little bit, and she is like the food server who's trying to clear the table because they have a long line of people that are waiting to get in, that kind of thing. And we would have dinner, and she's taken 2 bites and already she's picking up plates. And it's, Mama, what are you doing? We're not, no, we're gonna sit here and I have to go clean this. She cleans her house like 4 days a week. I mean, it's the cleanest house in Reno, but
that's me.
Oh my.
But
that's what makes us great, though, because we're all different.
I don't even have to clean too. It's like I'm just wiping or doing because it's clean already.
I was gonna say, I think it helps too, Ellceey, that we're very similar in a lot of ways, because we even went through with at least OCD on certain levels. Like, I don't like to mess up things because I understand that there's, I don't want to say a trickle effect, but we both have ways about what we do, to the point where we actually changed all of our lights. We learned how to do light switches so that when they're off, they're all facing the same way. Instead of, because the little things, but it's helpful that we both have our little antics with it.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong at all. It's what makes us all. We are all the same in more ways than we know.
Yeah.
We definitely are. Well, the Interracial Perspective Maturity Not Included podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to follow Ellceey and Erron on their social media, IG, Twitter, and YouTube. You will be glad you did. Check out our show notes for all of those links and how to follow them. Ellceey, Erron, thanks again so much for coming on the show today. We hope you'll come back and see us. We wish you nothing but the best.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Papa Jeff, for having us. You'll have to come on our podcast whenever you're free.
I would love to. And as we, used to say back in the day, not free, but reasonable,
Yes.
And I know. Papa Jeff's old guy humor. I know.
Well, your old guy humor is accepted over here.
Absolutely.
We like to laugh.
I'm there then. Absolutely. Thanks again, guys, for coming on. Much appreciated. Guys, this is the Papa Jeff's America program. We are the Talk Radio Podcast, continuing the conversation, one podcast at a time. For joining us today for the Papa Jeff's America program. Check out more episodes of the Talk Radio Podcast at papajeffusa.com. You can subscribe through the link on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. We're on all the major platforms. papajeffusa.com is your home for everything Papa Jeff, anytime, any device. And while you're there, you can check out more episodes of the broadcast, get in contact with us, and easily link to all of our social media. Your thoughts, comments, suggestions, and feedback are what really make this program happen. So send us an email at our website, papajeffusa.com. Please help us get the word out and share our broadcast with all of your social media followers, because sharing is caring. And speaking of caring, if you'd like to help us coffee up here at the Talk Radio Podcast, give a click to the Buy Me a Coffee link on our website. You know how much Papa Jeff loves his coffee. Let's all remember to follow the CDC's as well as your state and local COVID guidelines. Get the vaccine when it's your turn. And let's all do the right thing and take care of each other. Remember, disagree doesn't mean dislike. We're all in this together. Thanks again for joining us today, and next time bring a friend with you. We're looking forward to seeing you next time on the Talk Radio Podcast, continuing the conversation, one podcast at a time.